Hey, cool. See what's happening in the world today. Or I guess what happened in the world. Huh. Chris Pratt defends wife Katherine Schwarzenegger's cousin, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. What kind of a headline is that? Ooh. All right. First up, we got Trump says he has begun arrangements for face-to-face meeting between Putin and Zelensky. Trump and Zelensky met today, and European leaders to discuss security and peace efforts. Trump announced that he called Putin during the meeting to arrange a face-to-face meeting between Putin and Zelensky. Plans were made for European nations to offer security assurances to Ukraine in collaboration with the United States. Talks laid the groundwork for a trilateral meeting between Putin, Trump, and Zelensky, signaling possible progress but with unresolved challenges, as Russia rejected NATO peacekeepers and Trump stopped short of U.S. troop commitments. Any word on whether or not Ukraine's going to be forced to give up their territory? All right, Starbucks to give all North American salaried employees 2% raise this year. Salaried. I mean, 2% is not a lot. All salaried employees, I guess, cuts out all the workers, the bartenders. Starbucks will give all employees in North America 2% raise this year. Shift from previous increases that were decided at manager's discretion. $2 raise applies to all corporate staff, as well as to workers in manufacturing and distribution. Includes retail leadership, such as store managers, not baristas. Hello, viewer. Who's on? Welcome to the live stream. Oh, hi. Lady Omnia. Starbucks is giving 2% raise to all salaried North American staff. It's not the baristas. Texas Democrats returned to the state, ending their standoff over redistricting. Texas Dems ended a 2-week walkout, began returning to the state, allowing the Republican-led legislature to reconvene on Monday to resume redistricting votes. House Democrats announced a formal legal team to challenge the maps as racial gerrymandering, while California Democrats planned legislation and a November 4th referendum to counteract Texas's efforts. Okay, yeah. Trump approval holds at 40%, lowest level of his term. Only 32% of Hispanic voters approve of Trump's performance. It's their lowest approval level this year. Many respondents, including 1 in 5 Republicans, feel that Trump is too aligned with Russia amid his diplomatic efforts in Ukraine. Oh, good. Surveyed 4,446 U.S. adults and had a margin of error of about 2 percentage points. Oh, hello, second viewer. Welcome. I guess that's all we get out of that article. Okay, Chris Pratt defends his wife, Katherine Schwarzenegger's cousin, Robert F. Kennedy. So Chris Pratt is married to Katherine Schwarzenegger, who's cousins with RFK Jr.? That is a wild headline. Katherine Schwarzenegger, eldest child of Arnold. Says nothing about RFK. They're cause how? Wait, who's because it could be like Arnold married someone who was siblings with RFK's cousin or something. Maria Shriver. All right, we're 6 degreesing this out. We're going to figure out how this works. Huh. That's it. Maria Shriver, prominent member of the Shriver and Kennedy families. Who is Shriver? A bunch of ambassadors, delegates, senators. Sergeant Shriver married Eunice Kennedy. children. Okay, hold on. Okay, Maria Shriver. Well, hold on. Okay. Maria Shriver married. Oh, shit. Who got lost? Catherine Schwarzenegger is Maria Shriver, mom of Catherine. Okay, hold on. Catherine married Arnold. Maria ever birthed Catherine. Sergeant Shriver fathered Maria. Sergeant Shriver married Eunice Kennedy. Okay. Wait. Oh, yeah, okay. Right. Eunice mothered Maria. All right, we knew this. We got that. And wait, we lost it. Where'd it go? We lost it. Where was the RFK connection? Sister, okay. Holy shit. JFK's sister. And then RFK was JFK's what? Cousin? Nephew? The most unexpected rabbit hole I've ever delved into. Nephew. I have to draw it. Okay. All right, we've got Catherine. Where's my... So we've got JFK. Yep. The family tree that connects Arnold Schwarzenegger and RFK. JFK is uncle. So what's that? We've got a We've got a brother here. And this is RFK. Eunice is JFK's sister. Oh, wait. Eunice is... Okay, so we've got another... We've got a sister here. Eunice. Eunice mothered Maria. So there's Maria Shriver. Maria Shriver birthed Catherine. And then Catherine married Arnold. Oops. Who's this? Who's RFK's father? Joseph P. Kennedy Sr.? Wait a minute. So who the fuck? Who's JFK's father? It's a worm. It's the family worm. You see? You see how the eyes look just like the ears? Okay. Who's JFK's father? Parents. Rose Fitzgerald. So something's wrong here then. How the fuck do I move it? No, who's RFK's dad? That's who we want. Ethel Kennedy. Bobby Kennedy. Oh, there were 10 of them. But which generation? They're all named the fucking same. Yo, what's up? Zero spin. Okay, Robert F. Kennedy. That's Bobby. And Bobby was brothers to John F. Kennedy. That's it. Got it. Okay. RFK. Maybe. Yeah. Certainly seemed like it. All right, we've got it. RFK is Bobby Kennedy's son. Brothers to JFK. Wait, did I... Oh, fuck, who's Eunice? Eunice, JFK's sister. Okay. Oh, so we don't even need JFK here. Do we? Bobby and Eunice? Were they blood siblings? Eunice Kennedy. Eunice Kennedy. Kennedy siblings. SpecialOlympics.org. Eight siblings. Good. Joseph P. Kennedy. Who do we want? We're looking for Bobby Kennedy. Okay, right. That's right. Eunice and JFK were siblings. Is that Bobby Kennedy? Okay. Bobby Kennedy died June 6, 1968. Yes, that is him. Okay. Okay, so they were siblings. So we can close that. And we've got our graph. RFK was Bobby's son, who was the brother of Eunice, who was Maria's mother, who was Catherine's mother, who was Arnold's wife. So yeah, they're cousins. What is that, once removed or something? Did you know? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 degrees of separation between Arnold Schwarzenegger and our current health minister guy. What's the name of his position? United States Secretary of Health and Human Services. Okay. Wait. Catherine didn't marry Arnold. Catherine is Arnold's daughter. Oh, I fucked that up. Well, the whole thing is gone now. Former Attorney General Bill Barr appears for deposition in House Committee's Epstein probe. As part of its bipartisan Epstein probe, the House Oversight Committee summoned William Barr to testify at the Capitol on August 18, 2025, regarding Jeffrey Epstein's case. William Barr investigated Epstein's death and expressed being appalled and angry at security failures, according to reports. The panel subpoenaed the Justice Department for all Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell-related records by Tuesday, August 19th, and earlier called depositions from high-profile figures including Bill Clinton and James Comey. Barr emphasized he saw no evidence implicating President Donald Trump and stated the Biden administration would have leaked any such material. And said that the Biden administration would have leaked any such material. Sponsored by Ground News. Who's depositioning him? DOJ to begin sharing Epstein files with Congress on Friday. Now that they've had all the time in the world to censor everything. Okay, on to the Federalist paper. New topic. Last time they talked about concerning dangers from dissensions between the states. Today we're talking about the consequences of hostilities between the states. Well, the consequences of hostilities, not just the dangers from dissension. From the New York Packet. Ooh. 11/20/1787. To the people of the state of New York, assuming it therefore as a... Oh my God. Assuming it therefore as an established truth that the several states, in case of disunion or such combinations of them as might happen to be formed out of the wreck of the general confederacy, would be subject to those vicissitudes of peace and war, of friendship and enmity with each other, which have fallen to the lot of all neighboring nations not united under one government, let us enter into a concise detail of some of the consequences that would attend such a situation. Assuming it therefore as an established truth that the several states Assume that disunionized set of states from the assuming that we don't unionize, assuming that if we don't unionize, that the confederacies would be subject to war and enmity and all kinds of different complex relationships, just like all of the other neighboring nations that have ever existed. Assuming so, let us enter into concise detail of some of the consequences that would attend such a situation. War between the states in the first period of their separate existence would be accompanied with much greater distresses than it commonly is in those countries where regular military establishments have long obtained. The disciplined armies always kept on foot on the continent of Europe, though they bear a malignant aspect to liberty and economy, have, notwithstanding, been productive of the signal advantage of rendering sudden conquests impracticable, and of preventing that rapid desolation which used to mark the progress of war prior to their introduction. There was stability when there were military people everywhere. When there were militaries and armies disciplined, always roaming around, there was more stability. War between states would not be like that because there wasn't an army just roaming around. The art of fortification has contributed to the same ends. The nations of Europe are encircled with chains of fortified places which mutually obstruct vision. Chains of fortified places. Oh, chains, like one after another, after another, after another, which obstruct invasion, like castles. Campaigns are wasted in reducing 2 or 3 frontier garrisons to gain admittance into an enemy's country. Similar impediments occur at every step to exhaust the strength and delay the progress of an invader. Formerly, an invading army would penetrate into the heart of a neighboring country almost as soon as intelligence of its approach could be received. But now a comparatively small force of disciplined troops, acting on the defensive with the aid of posts, is able to impede and finally to frustrate the enterprises of one much more considerable. The history of war in that quarter of the globe is no longer a history of nations subdued and empires overturned, but of towns taken and retaken, of battles that decide nothing, of retreats more beneficial than victories, of much effort and little acquisition. Sounds like he's describing guerrilla warfare. In this country, the scene would be altogether reversed. The jealousy of military establishments would postpone them as long as possible. The want of fortifications, leaving the frontiers of one state open to another, would facilitate inroads. The populous states would, with little difficulty, overrun their less populous neighbors. Conquests would be as easy to be made as difficult to be retained. War, therefore, would be desultory and predatory. Desultory refers to warfare that is irregular, scattered, and lacking a clear path or sustained effort. Scattered and in disarray. War, therefore, would be scattered and in disarray and predatory. Plunder and devastation ever march in the train of irregulars. The calamities of individuals would make the principal figure in the events which would categorize our military exploits. So if we fail to unite, then these are the kind of things that would fall us. This picture is not too highly wrought, though, I confess, it would not long remain a just one. Safety from external danger is the most powerful director of national conduct. Even the ardent love of liberty will, after a time, give way to its dictates. Ooh. Isn't that what we saw with the Patriot Act? With the... Oh, maybe not the Red Scare, sure, yeah. Sometimes it's helpful, like in a war, World War II. Love of liberty gives way to safety from external danger. The violent destruction of life and property incident to war. The violent destruction of life and property incident to war, the continual effort and alarm attendant on a state of continual danger, will compel nations the most attached to liberty to resort for repose and security to institutions which have a tendency to destroy their civil and political rights. Huh. Prescient. Fear and alarm turn benign institutions against liberty. To be more safe, they at length become willing to run the risk of being less free. These institutions chiefly alluded to are standing armies and the correspondent appendages of military establishments. Or military, rather. Standing armies, it is said, are not provided against in the new Constitution, and it is therefore inferred that they may exist under it. Their existence, however, from the very terms of the proposition, is at most problematical and uncertain. But standing armies, it may be replied, must inevitably result from a dissolution of the Confederacy. Frequent war and constant apprehension, which require a state of as constant preparation, will infallibly produce them. The weaker states or confederacies would first have recourse to them to put themselves upon an equality with their more potent neighbors. They would endeavor to supply the inferiority of population and resources by a more regular and effective system of defense, by disciplined troops, and by fortifications. They would, at the same time, be necessitated to strengthen the executive arm of government, in doing which their constitutions would acquire a progressive direction toward monarchy. They would, at the same time, be necessitated to strengthen the executive arm of government, in doing which their constitutions would acquire a progressive direction towards monarchy. Ooh. It is of the nature of war to increase the executive at the expense of the legislative authority. It is the nature of war to increase the executive at the expense of the legislative authority. Government acquire progress. press toward a monarch. The expedients which have been mentioned would soon give the states or confederacies that made use of them a superiority over their neighbors. Small states, or states of less natural strength, under vigorous governments and with the assistance of disciplined armies, have often triumphed over large states, or states of greater natural strength, which have been destitute of these advantages. Neither the pride nor the safety of the more important states or confederacies would permit them long to submit to this mortifying and adventitious superiority. They would quickly resort to means similar to those by which it had been effected, to reinstate themselves in their lost preeminence. Thus we should, in a little time, see established in every part of this country the same engines of despotism which have been the scourge of the old world. This, at least, would be the natural course of things, and our reasonings will be the more likely to be just in proportion as they are accommodated to this standard. These are not vague inferences drawn from supposed or speculative defects in the Constitution, the whole power of which is lodged in the hands of a people or their representatives and delegates, but they are solid conclusions drawn from the natural and necessary progress of human affairs. It may, perhaps, be asked, by way of objection to this, why did not standing armies spring up out of the contentions which so often distracted the ancient republics of Greece? Different answers, equally satisfactory, may be given to this question. The industrious habits of the people of the present day, absorbed in the pursuits of gain and devoted to the improvements of agriculture and commerce, are incompatible with the condition of a nation of soldiers, which was the true condition of the people of those republics. Those old republics were nations of soldiers. In present day, in Hamilton's time, the habits of the people are absorbed in the pursuits of gain. They're devoted to agriculture and commerce and improving their lives in that manner, not in a warlike manner. The means of revenue, which have been so greatly multiplied by the increase of gold and silver and of the arts of industry, and the science of finance, which is the offspring of modern times, concurring with the habits of nations, have produced an entire revolution in the system of war, and have rendered disciplined armies, distinct from the body of the citizens, the inseparable companions of frequent hostility. Nice. 6 subs. It was 5 just a minute ago. All right. What are you gonna play? Solid. Should find a Civil War, not a Civil War, a Revolutionary War game. Find one where you have to convince the other states to adopt the Constitution. I'm sure you could scrounge that up from all the thousands of games you probably have in your Steam library. Take bits and pieces of each one. There is a wide difference also between military establishments in a country seldom exposed by its situation to internal invasions, between military establishments in a country seldom exposed by its situation to internal invasions, and in one which is often subject to them and always apprehensive of them. I wonder, internal invasions, does he mean invasions from the outside that make it inside? Or like social upheaval and revolutionary invasions like from the inside like that? Hamilton contrasts two types of nations. Nations with few internal invasions. Those with geographic advantages and strong external defenses. So there are no enemies within. Okay. There's a wide difference between military establishments in a country where there are no internal invasions and in a country which there are internal invasions. The rulers of the former can have a good pretext, if they are even so inclined, to keep on foot armies so numerous as must of necessity be maintained in the latter. So numerous as must of necessity be maintained in the latter. These armies being, in the first case, rarely, if at all, called into activity or interior defense, the people are in no danger of being broken to military subordination. The laws are not accustomed to relaxations in favor of military exigencies. The civil state remains in full vigor, neither corrupted nor confounded with the principles or propensities of the other state. The smallness of the army... Do we have like a dark mode? Much better. Okay. The smallness of the army renders the natural strength of the community an overmatch for it. The civil state remains in full vigor, neither corrupted nor confounded with the principles or propensities of the other state. The smallness of the army renders the natural strength of the community an overmatch for it, and the citizens, not habituated to look up to the military power for protection, or to submit to its oppressions, neither love nor fear the soldiery. They view them with a spirit of jealous acquiescence in a necessary evil, and stand ready to resist a power which they suppose may be exerted to the prejudice of their rights. So it seems like he's saying that there is a justified fear of the executive. That the executive is, by definition, intrinsically monarchic or authoritarian. That the executive being an army. Oh, well, let's see. Fear of the executive, or rather a standing army. Yeah, I mean, the violence of the state is by definition intrinsically monarchic and opposed to civil rights. The army, under such circumstances, may usefully aid the magistrate to suppress a small faction or an occasional mob or insurrection, but it will be unable to enforce encroachments against the united efforts of a great body of people. So, a small army of a civil state may aid in quelling small factions or mobs or insurrections, but will be unable to resist united efforts of large bodies of people. In a country in the predicament last described, the contrary of all of this happens. So in a state with large standing armies, the perpetual menacings of danger oblige the government to be always prepared to repel it. Its armies must be numerous enough for instant defense. The continual necessity for their services enhances the importance of the soldier and proportionally degrades the condition of the citizen. The military state becomes elevated above the civil. The inhabitants of territories, often the theater of war, are unavoidably subjected to frequent infringements on their rights, which serve to weaken their sense of those rights, and by degrees the people are brought to consider the soldiery not only as their protectors, but as their superiors. The transition from this disposition to that of considering them masters is neither remote nor difficult, but it is very difficult to prevail upon a people under such impressions, to make a bold or effectual resistance to usurpations supported by the military power. The kingdom of Great Britain falls within the first description. I wish he would just quote, tell me what it is. Which description? There's been 5 different descriptions. Okay. An insular situation and a powerful marine. An insular situation and a powerful marine guarding it in a great measure against the possibility of foreign invasion. A powerful marine force, like Navy. Supersede the necessity of a numerous army within the kingdom. A sufficient force to make head against a sudden descent till the militia could have time to rally and embody is all that has been deemed requisite. Right, a sufficient standing army to buy time for the militia to rally is all that would be needed, if you have a good external defense. No motive of national policy has demanded, nor would public opinion have tolerated, a larger number of troops upon its domestic establishment. There has been, for a long time past, little room for the operation of the other causes, which have been enumerated as the consequences of internal war. This peculiar felicity of situation has, in a great degree, contributed to preserve the liberty which that country to this day enjoys, in spite of the prevalent venality and corruption. Susceptibility to bribery, susceptibility to corruption, venality. Okay, venality. This peculiar felicity of situation has in a great degree contributed to preserve the liberty which that country to this day enjoys, in spite of the prevalent venality and corruption. If, on the contrary, Britain had been situated on the continent and had been compelled, as she would have been, by that situation to make her military establishments at home coextensive with those of the other great powers of Europe, she, like them, would in all probability be, at this day, a victim of the absolute power of a single man. It is possible, though not easy, that the people of that island may be enslaved from other causes, but it cannot be by the prowess of an army so inconsiderable as that which has been usually kept up within the kingdom. So Great Britain was so prosperous partly because they didn't have a standing army. They had a strong navy and were surrounded by water, so they could defend themselves from external threats. But the absence of a strong standing army reduced the potentials for internal violence or internal stripping of rights. If we are wise enough to preserve the Union, we may for ages enjoy an advantage similar to that of an insulated situation. Europe is at a great distance from us. Her colonies in our vicinity will be likely to continue too much disproportioned in strength to be able to give us any dangerous annoyance. Extensive military establishments cannot, in this position, be necessary to our security. But if we should be disunited, and the integral parts should either remain separated or, which is most probable, should be thrown together into 2 or 3 confederacies, we should be, in a short course of time, in the predicament of the continental powers of Europe. Our liberties would be a prey to the means of defending ourselves against the ambition and jealousy of each other. This is an idea not superficial or futile, but solid and weighty. It deserves the most serious and mature consideration of every prudent and honest man of whatever party. If such men will make a firm and solemn pause, and meditate dispassionately on the importance of this interesting idea, if they will contemplate it in all its attitudes, and trace it to all its consequences, they will not hesitate to part with trivial objections to a constitution, the rejection of which would in all probability put a final period on the Union. The airy phantoms that flit before the distempered imaginations of some of its adversaries would quickly give place to the more substantial forms of dangers, real, certain, and formidable. Publius. Let's see. This objection, so here's a reference. This objection will be fully examined in its proper place, and it will be shown that the only natural precaution which could have been taken on this subject has been taken, and a much better one than is to be found in any constitution that has been heretofore framed in America, most of which contain no guard at all on this subject. Which subject? The institutions chiefly alluded to are standing armies and the correspondent appendages of military establishments. Standing armies, it is said, are not provided against in the new Constitution, and it is therefore inferred that they must exist under it. So he makes the case against standing armies, and then goes on to say that the Constitution does not forbid standing armies. But then at the end he says the Constitution has this under consideration, and it has guardrails intact against it. 2-4. Heretofore. All right, this has been Federalist paper number 8. Wow, can we get rid of that? Sidebar. Texas Democrat says she's locked inside the state capitol after refusing mandatory DPS escort. What is a DPS escort? Democratic State Rep Nicole Collier from Fort Worth returned to the Texas Capitol on Monday, but says she's remained locked inside the Capitol because she wouldn't sign a permission slip to be under escort by the Texas Department of Public Safety. The escorts for all House Democrats who left the state of Texas last month. I thought it was last week. Are we still in the same month? August 18th? The escorts are meant as a guarantee that they will return to the House by 10 a.m. Wednesday for the next special session. Go away, Jack Fink. CBS News Texas spoke with Collier via Zoom on Monday, and she said the situation is wrong, just like the new congressional maps she and other Dems have tried to block from being passed. She also said that according to DPS, she must stay in the House chambers or inside her office at the Capitol. In a statement by the Texas House Democratic Caucus, it said the police escorts were the latest Republican tactic to monitor and control Democratic lawmakers following their successful quorum break. Representative Jean Wu, the House Democratic Caucus chair, said their efforts to block the potential 5 Republican-leaning seats have now moved into their second phase, the legal phase. On Monday evening, the House Select Committee on Congressional Redistricting approved the new maps along party lines by a 12-8 margin. The legislation goes to the full House, which could vote on the maps as early as Wednesday. Texas Senate Redistricting Committee approved the maps on Sunday, and the full Senate will take them up sometime this week. Great. China shuts down OnlyFans 26 days ago, calls it a threat to national morals and social order. Tradwife, Delulu, and Skibbity are now in the Cambridge Dictionary. All right, well, give me the Cambridge Dictionary. Skibbity, a word that can... Skibbity, adjective, humorous slang. A word that can have different meanings, such as cool or bad, and can be used with no real meaning as a joke. Skibbity, 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 a boy of around 7 saying to himself as he dribbled a football. What the skibbity are you doing? What was the most skibbity part? In the viral song, the words "You're so pretty" were replaced by "You're so skibbity." That wasn't very skibbity riz of you. That wasn't very skibbity riz of you. Yeah. Okay, Frank Nez Media, the only news hub where journalists give the people a voice. I don't know about that. ICE is now recruiting teens and seniors in a desperate attempt. They're now hiring teens and seniors to send the evil fruit vendors and landscapers back to their country? Jeez. All right, I don't want to read this, but I will see. Straight Arrow News? Yeah, no thanks. Breitbart? The Thinking Conservative? Well, this one's rated as high factuality. What is Frank Nez Media? Let's see. Founded by a guy named Frank Nez. Who this guy is. Retail investors, so that's what he primarily does. Journalism for retail investors. Daily market news across the spectrum of financial sectors. Not sure what that means for his factuality with political stuff. On August 12th, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem announced a significant surge to applications to the U.S. ICE following the Department of Homeland Security's decision to relax age restrictions for immigration officer positions, allowing seniors up to the age of 65 to apply. The decision aims to address staffing shortages amid Trump's aggressive immigration enforcement agenda. Previously, law enforcement positions typically capped the applicant age at 37, with exceptions for veterans, per federal regulations cited by USA Jobs. Noem said that we've had hundreds of thousands of applications since we relaxed the rules for those who could be an immigration officer. Older Americans are stepping up. ICE is offering up to $50,000 in signing bonuses, student loan forgiveness, and retirement benefits, according to Yahoo News. Recruitment surge has elicited mixed responses. And supporters and skepticism. Noem's defense of ICE raids, which she claims targets horrible people based on reasonable suspicion, has been contradicted by incidents like the detention of U.S. citizen Andrea Velez in Los Angeles, who alleged racial profiling. White House border czar Tom Homan suggested that physical appearances can justify detentions. Noem's tenure as DHS secretary has been marked by controversy. A federal judge's ruling on July 2025 blocking Noem's attempt to end protected status for Haitian migrants highlights a legal pushback against her policies. This actually doesn't seem like a bad article. It's just sort of giving a all-around view. Okay, but it did mention teens. But then it didn't in the article, so it's a clickbait. Oklahoma will require teachers from New York and California to prove they back America first, quote unquote. Oklahoma is the 50th in the nation for education. New Jersey's number 1. Wow. New Mexico is 50, Alaska is 49, Oklahoma is 48. It's not too far off from 50. Oklahoma's new America First teacher certification test will require educators from California and New York to agree with conservative curriculum. Just California and New York? Teachers from Cali and New York who want to work in Oklahoma public schools will be required to pass a certification test to prove they share the state's conservative political values. Regardless of the subject or grade they teach, they'll have to show they know the biological differences between females and males and that they agree with the state's American history standards, which includes elements of a conspiracy theory that the 2020 election was stolen. The State Department of Education will implement the new certification test for teachers from the 2 largest Democrat-led states who are teaching things that are antithetical to our standards to ensure newcomers are not coming into our classrooms and indoctrinating kids. Oklahoma is offering teaching bonuses that go up to $50,000 to attract teachers from across the nation. So they're 48th in education in the United States. So they offer $50,000 to attract new teachers and then tell those teachers, hey, you have to teach the way we want you to teach. So how's that going to help their education? They're already doing it wrong. He said the test will only apply to teachers from Cali and New York for now, because those states specifically teach lessons that are antithetical to those taught in Oklahoma. Oh. Nonprofit conservative media company PragerU is helping Oklahoma's State Department of Education develop the test. Holy shit. They're going to be 50th soon. PragerU is a potential PBS replacement. The right-wing media company that may be Trump's pick to overtake traditional public broadcasting networks has a video where a cartoon of Christopher Columbus minimizes slavery. That's not the only video they have. Several states, including Alaska, Louisiana, and South Carolina, allow for some type of educational partnership with PragerU. Florida was the first state to approve of PragerU content being taught in its public schools in 2023. Its biggest partnership yet, though, is the White House. On July 24th, President Trump signed a bill to cut $1.1 billion in funding from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which includes PBS, NPR, and among 1,500 other local broadcasters. The next day, PragerU and the Department of Education unveiled an exhibit in the White House's Founders Museum called The Road to Liberty, featuring some AI-generated commentary from the Founding Fathers that referenced conservative rhetoric. The National Museum of American History removed its references to Trump's 2 first-term impeachments. The museum said the decision was temporary. Huh. Newsmax settles the Dominion lawsuit for $67 million over the 2020 election claims. It took them this long? Fox News paid $787.5 million to settle a similar lawsuit in 2023, which is the reason that I don't even remember their names. Bill O'Reilly. Was it Bill O'Reilly? No. I mean, he's not there anymore, but that's not... Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson left Fox News after the Dominion lawsuit because they had text messages of him texting his producers and other people saying all of this 2020 election stuff is a lie. We're lying to our audience. And when that came out, Fox had to settle that lawsuit, and they parted ways. Newsmax also paid what court papers describe as a $40 million settlement to a libel lawsuit for a different voting machine manufacturer, Smartmatic. It's funny how all these news organizations have to pay hundreds of millions of dollars for lying and libel about the 2020 election. Quote, Newsmax believed it was critically important for the American people to hear both sides of the election disputes that arose in 2020, the company said in a statement published on its website. We stand by our coverage as fair, balanced, and conducted within professional standards of journalism. Notice how they didn't say that they believed it was critically important for the American people to hear the truth. They said it's important for them to hear both sides. That means one side was a lie. All right, I think I'm tapped out for the night. Thanks for joining. Have a good night. And we'll be back tomorrow night with some more scary shit in the news. Good night, everyone.